We're set. Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice little group. I love it. I like smaller groups. It's more intimate. So the name of the talk, or the title of the talk, I should say, is Why I Practice Lojong and Tonglen, which is only a little bit about what this talk is. I'd like to start with a poem. I have a couple of poems. I'd like to start with this, just because it's nice. It's called Wage Peace by Judith Hill. Wage peace with your breath. Breathe in firemen and rubble. Breathe out whole buildings and flocks of red-winged blackbirds. Breathe in terrorists and breathe out sleeping children and freshly mown fields. Breathe in confusion and breathe out maple trees. Breathe in the fallen and breathe out lifelong friendships intact. Wage peace with your listening, hearing sirens, pray loud. Remember your tools, flower seeds, clothespins, clean rivers. Make soup. Play music. Learn the word for thank you in 3 languages. Learn to knit and make a hat. Think of chaos as dancing raspberries. Imagine grief as the Imagine grief as the outbreath of beauty or the gesture of fish. Swim for the other side. Wage peace. Never has the world seemed so fresh and precious. Have a cup of tea and rejoice. Act as if armistice has already arrived. Don't wait another minute. That's good. I met a guy at a retreat whose name is Enver Rachmanov, and he posted this on Facebook quite a while ago. And the last time I did a talk on Tonglen, I read this same poem. I really like this poem. I'd like to talk about vows for a minute. We say vows, right? We say vows here. We take refuge in the Buddha. We take refuge in the Dharma. We take refuge in the Sangha. And when we take refuge, that's a vow, right? Yeah. And we say, vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata teaching, saving all sentient beings. That's the Bodhisattva vow, right? It's a vow. And we say the 4 great vows, and we take the precepts. And the precepts are vows, right? So I think vows they permeate us in and sitting Zen. Dogen says sitting Zen is a vow. Sitting Zazen. So it permeates us. How many of you have vows? Seriously, how many of you have vows? Other than the ones I just talked about. Yeah. Just a second. Thank you for doing this, Patrick, and now I'm going to undo it. So what did you say?
As in marriage vows?
As in marriage vows or religious vows, okay. So those of us who are married, presumably we take those vows pretty seriously. Okay, what other vows? Some of us. None? Do you vow
by certain principles
to live aside from our precepts, other principles like, give me an example, Steve.
conscious way of being kind and respectful.
Being kind and respectful to people. Following the driving laws, and not going through red lights. Isn't that a vow, right? Pat and I almost got killed. Well, killed recently because she was on the passenger side and the guy just went right through a red light and I saw him. I can't believe I saw him, and it would have probably 1 second earlier and he would have hit us, right? So I vowed to follow the traffic signals.
So a vow is like a commitment.
A vow is like a commitment. Mm-hmm.
Vow to live each day to the best of your ability.
A vow to live to the best of your ability each day.
Yes.
Thank you.
A vow to wait to respond, or a vow to not respond.
A vow to wait to respond, or a vow not to respond at all. Mm-hmm. Actually, I recently wrote some personal vows for myself, and one of them was very similar to that. There was two parts related. You all know this one. To listen from the heart and not to interrupt, which is very hard for me. Very hard. Good. Okay. Anybody else? I don't want to exclude. Yes. To accept things as they are. It's a great vow. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Henry?
A vow to honor and respect.
A vow to honor and respect. And notice there's no person. I like that because it means everyone, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do good for everyone. Okay, so
I want to say one more. A vow to keep your life open during the day to new things.
to keep your life open during the day to new things. It's a nice vow. Okay, so did I get it? I did. Okay. So I'm thinking about vows a lot recently as I got into this, thinking about Lojong. The Lojong is a way of training the mind. It was originally a Tibetan practice. And it came out of, I'm not exactly sure how it evolved, but it's 59 slogans or phrases divided into 7 groups, 7 groupings. And I'm not going to go into the detail of every little bit of Lojong. But it deals a lot, Lojong, with bodhicitta, making you aware of how you can spontaneously attain enlightenment by thinking about great compassion for all beings. I'm not saying bodhisattva, I'm saying bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is the process of becoming a bodhisattva. And these slogans kind of remind you of things. Like, I'm going to tell you the first point. Number 1 is, first train in the preliminaries. Now, what are the preliminaries? Now, here's a vow. First train in the preliminaries. And the preliminaries are this precious human life. Well, stop. Let's just stop there. Whoa, wake up and realize how lucky we are. We're not an insect. There are billions and billions of insects. We're not microbes. There are trillions and gazillions of microbes, right? We're not dogs or cats, and I love dogs and cats. They're pretty close to us. But we are humans. When I was doing Tibetan practice, which I did for a number of years, Sogyal Rinpoche used to say, imagine that you're in the middle of the ocean, and you see a life ring, what do they call it?
Life preserver.
Thank you, a life preserver. And it's floating in the middle of the ocean. And suddenly a turtle comes up through the middle of that. In the vastness of the ocean, one life preserver and a turtle sticks its head through the center of that. That's what the likelihood, he said, of us having a human life is. So, precious human life. The second one is impermanence. Train in the preliminaries. Precious human life, it's impermanent. Remember that. Everything's impermanent. The third is karma. Think about what you say and do. And the fourth is suffering. No matter what you do, there's suffering. And so, we need to pay attention to how we suffer and everyone else is suffering too. So that's first train the preliminary. So you could stop there and spend your entire life trying to figure out how first of all, to help people deal with the fact that they're human, that they know they're going to die, that in their lifetime before they die, they're going to screw up and cause karma problems for themselves, and that's going to cause suffering, right? And that's a great vow, just to help right there. The second point is, I love these because they are obtuse. Regard all dharmas as dreams. Regard all dharmas as dreams. So now we're not just talking about impermanence, we're talking about emptiness, aren't we? It's what we make it, or what we don't make it. So if I want to have a vow about regarding all dharmas as dreams, I have to remind myself of emptiness constantly. Now, I want to tell you that a lot of these slogans I have trouble with. And if I sit on them for a while and they're not making any sense to me, like a koan, I just sit with them. So sometimes after a while, I get no help from just sitting. So I go to a book. And there are a couple of great books. This was originally my go-to book. It's by Trela Kyabgon. I think that's how he pronounces his name. Kyabgon. Called The Practice of Lojong. And he talks about everything that you might want to know. And then, if we want to have a Zen take on it, this is a wonderful and a much thinner book. Training in Compassion, Zen Teachings on the Practice of Lojong by Norman Fisher. So, vows. So, basically, I do these because I want to constantly, and I do these regularly. Pat will tell you that I keep this deck on my dresser, and this is a deck of the 59 slogans. And the one that's out right now on top is, don't be so predictable. Isn't that wonderful? Don't be so predictable. Boy, was that a wake-up for me the first day, and I've been sitting with this one for about 2 weeks now, just sitting there. How do I vow not to be so predictable? Open up every day. Wow. When you said that, I thought, whew.
Right.
Yeah.
Something to work at.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Don't be so predictable. This is, just for anybody that's curious, this is group number 6, slogan number 30. Here's the next one. Don't malign others. There's a great vow. That's the same as our vow, do no harm. What a great vow. So I do these vows. For those of you whose partner, spouse, friend pisses you off, here's the one for you. Don't wait in ambush. I did not organize. That's number 32. I swear. Here, self-liberate even the antidote. What's the antidote? Sit on that one for a while. So, again, I do this practice to train my mind, to remind myself that I can remember that I'm making these things up, that I'm noticing these things, that I'm causing my own grief or my own anger, or I can wake up to things. And I also use these to remind myself of the importance of vow, of really, really, really saving all sentient beings. So one of these slogans is the following. Well, I got to read you the one that comes before it. Slogan 9. In all activities, train with the slogans. Don't forget what you're doing. Pay attention to these, Hey, that's number 9. Number 10 is begin the sequence of sending and taking with yourself. Whoa, what is sending and taking? That is Tonglen. So I am going to say something about Tonglen here for a moment. Actually, maybe not. I want to say a little more about vows. I know I'm jumping a little bit, but I forgot that I had this stuff written out, and I really want to say this to you, read this to you. Okamura Roshi. Okamura is a Zen priest, a translator. He's got a Zen center in Bloomington, Indiana. I'd love to meet this guy. He's a great translator. He was talking about vows. He's written a book called Living by Vow. And he says, vow is essential for all bodhisattvas. In fact, part of the definition of a bodhisattva is a person who lives by vow instead of by karma. Karma means habit, preferences, or a ready-made system of values. As we grow up, we learn a system of values from the culture around us, which we use to evaluate the world and choose actions. This is karma and living by karma. In contrast, a bodhisattva lives by vow. Vow is like a magnet or compass that shows us the direction toward the Buddha. There are 2 kinds of vow, general vows taken by all bodhisattvas, and particular vows for each person. So I am thinking of these as particular vows. Like this one right now, don't wait in ambush.
You read that one about don't be unpredictable?
Yes.
Well, unpredictable would be operating by karma.
That's right. Exactly. Don't be unpredictable. Being unpredictable, I'm just repeating, would be operating by karma rather than by vow. So.
Unpredictable is operating by karma.
Yeah, sorry. I got it backwards. Sorry. Thank you. I translated it wrong. Sorry. Yes. Vow is like a magnet or a compass that shows us the direction toward the Buddha. There are 2 kinds of vow. General vows taken by all bodhisattvas and particular vows for each person. Each bodhisattva makes specific vows unique to his or her personality and capabilities. The 4 bodhisattva vows, we're going to say them at the very end today. Chant them. The 4 bodhisattva vows. Creations are numberless, I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to transform them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to open them. The awakened way is unsurpassable, I vow to embody it. Those vows are general vows that should be taken by all Mahayana Buddhist practitioners. Zen is a Mahayana practice. we must live by these vows, he says. That is our direction. Our sitting practice is also based on these vows. So I said here, I see these vows, these Lojong vows, slogans, as vows to achieve in search of a larger vow, which is bodhicitta, which is in search of an even larger vow, which is the bodhisattva vow. And that is to save all sentient beings. So don't wait in ambush. How can I take that to the level of saving all sentient beings? Well, first you have to start with yourself. So I need first to make sure that I'm not suffering. And if I'm not suffering and I'm happy and I'm good and I'm positive, then I'm going to save some sentient being somehow. Or I'm going to find a way to work toward it. That's how I'm seeing this. And and it's a hard task. I was reminded of the story that, what are they called, the Jataka tales? Of the little parrot. I don't know if any of you have read these. They're like Aesop's tales. Aesop's tales. They're really cool. This parrot is flying along and it sees that there's a fire in the forest. And it says, oh my goodness, the forest is on fire. So it goes and it looks around and it sees some water and it dips its wings down the water and it flies back and shakes its wings over the fire. And hardly any effect at all. And it does this time and time again with great effort, keeps doing it until finally this little parrot puts out the fire. And I think that story is about effort, not giving up. And so for me, these vows toward bodhicitta and then the bodhisattva vow, saving all sentient beings, I recognize I'm not going to do it. I'll probably never do it in this lifetime. What am I saying? Probably. I will never save all sentient beings in this lifetime. But you know what? Maybe my doing this, I don't know that I believe in my living again and as another person or another body. But let's think of it more like Jungian. Like my effect on the world, having a greater effect on everybody else in the world. And he calls that, who's a Jungian here?
The archetypes?
Say that again?
Is it the archetypes you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about how collective unconscious. Thank you. Thank you. I didn't know I was going to say this morning. This just popped in my mind right now. So that's why I couldn't think of this at all. Yeah, it's kind of Jungian, the collective unconscious, that the whole collective unconscious of the world gets changed by each of us trying to do good things. Hopefully, the collective unconscious of this nation isn't changing because of the bad that's happening right now. You know? Okay, so the little bird, that parrot, really, really tried. Can somebody tell me what time it is?
25 seconds.
Great. Okay. So each time I pay attention to a slogan, I kind of make that vow and knowing that, okay, it's an effort. So now, the actual practice of Lojong I talked about pretty well. I mean, it's just what I said. But then you get to this slogan, sending and taking should be practiced alternately. So that's Tonglen, and sending and taking, it has to do with breath. And I started with a poem about breath. The story of Tonglen, which is sending and taking on the breath, and I'm going to explain in a minute, then we're going to practice it. Here's the story, I think. Atisha, a 10th century Kadampa master, received them from his teacher, Serlingpa. Later, a Tibetan master, Geshe Chikawa, 12th century, happened to be in his teacher's room. He came across a book lying open and saw the following lines. Give all profit and gain to others, take all loss and defeat upon yourself. Give all profit and gain to others. take all loss and defeat on yourself. So Chikawa asked, just how important do you think these teachings are in these 2 lines? And the teacher said, whether you like it or not, you will have to practice this teaching if you truly wish to attain Buddhahood. Tonglen is giving all profit and gain to others, taking all loss and defeat upon yourself. Except that we do it the other way. We take all loss and defeat in. We breathe in the pain. We breathe in the suffering. We breathe in... Lori was saying that she's not feeling well, and she told me what her problem was. And I was sitting here. She told us before we were sitting, and I sat here, and I breathed in Lori's pain and illness into me. You could say, well, that's going to make you sick. I breathe it in as dark, sooty, foul energy, smoke. And I transform it by my heart. And I send it out as pure, pure goodness to her, back to her. Pema Trojan says, if you can't do that, think of giving a hug. I like that. Yeah. So maybe I can send to somebody who's struggling, here's a hug. Here's a hug. So Tonglen is sending and taking, and it's born on the breath. So let's do a little Tonglen practice. And I start usually by thinking of loving kindness phrases. So I think of, may all beings be happy. May all beings be well. May all beings be free from suffering. And I do that for a few minutes. And then I get into the Tonglen. Now I'm going to use a Tonglen practice that is not mine. This is Joan Halifax's. And I'm basically going to read you her practice as she presented it. It's in a couple of her books, and it's also, she does it in the Being with Diane course that she teaches, that wonderful 8-day course. So, if any of you keep track of how many minutes or hours you meditate, thousands, hundreds, whatever, add another 30 minutes or 25 minutes right now, because this is a meditation practice. So sit in a meditation posture for yourself. Relax in a chair. And gently close your eyes and let your body and mind settle. You want to feel relaxed and open in this practice. And I want to say something. If you get at all upset during this, just breathe that out. Just breathe it out, because it's all not real. It's just your mind. Begin by breathing in what you're feeling right now. Fear, agitation, anger, resistance, happiness, goodness, whatever it is. Breathe it in and accept it as this moment. On the exhalation breath, breathe out well-being. Clear your mind by bringing awareness to what is agitating you and breathing it in, accepting it with kindness. Then as you exhale, give yourself some spaciousness. Do this breath practice until you're fully calm and alert. Now just keep breathing and find a rhythm. Bless you. On your in-breath, imagine that you're inhaling heavy, hot air. On your out-breath, visualize exhaling cool, light air. And follow that pattern, breathing in heaviness and breathing out lightness until it's familiar for you. The heaviness is suffering. You're suffering. Everyone's around you, they're suffering. The nation's suffering. The world's suffering. And lightness is well-being. Your well-being, the well-being of everyone around you, the nation's well-being, the world's well-being. Just continue that for a moment. Heaviness, lightness. Now imagine that you're breathing through all the pores of your body. On the in-breath, heavy, hot air enters every pore. On the out-breath, cool light flows from every pore of your body. Open your heart to suffering. Hot smoke coming in, cool, fresh air going out. Send a deep, cool, light, and spacious healing breath to yourself. Now, I'd like you to think of a friend. Think carefully about your friend. Think about your friend and something that you know about them that they may be suffering. Maybe they're not well. Maybe a child is ill. Maybe their cat or dog is not doing well. Maybe they've lost a parent. Send a deep, cool, light, and spacious healing breath to your friend. Let the out-breath flow through every pore of your body. Breathe in that pain that they have and let their suffering remind you of the many others who find themselves suffering the same way. And then breathe out. Let the out-breath flow through every pore of your body. Your friend is your connection to everyone else in the world. I'd like you to think now of someone that you don't like. I'm not giving you any hints. Someone that you really have difficulty with. Maybe they annoy you. Maybe they anger you. Maybe you can't stand to be around them, to hear their voice, to see them. Now look at that person carefully and recognize how that person is suffering. for whatever reasons they behave the way they do. And you see all of their suffering as dark smoke emanating from them. Breathe that in. Breathe it into your heart. Let your heart break open. And when your heart breaks open, allow your heart to send out rays of light, and allow the pores of your body to send cooling, fresh energy back to them. Stay with this for a moment and notice how you're feeling as you do this. You are not that person, but you are breathing in all of what they are and transforming it with your love, with your caring, with your openness, with your vow to save all sentient beings from suffering. And when you're ready, open your eyes. Take a deep breath. Now, I do this pretty much just like we just did. Pretty much every day, not for as long. It's really, really, for me, very helpful. Okay, everybody back?
I was just going to ask you, can you say a little bit more about in what way it's helpful?
Oh, it has helped me. The question was, can you say more about in what way it's helped me? It has helped me maintain develop first and then maintain my compassionate self. I remind myself every time I do it how uncompassionate I used to be, how important it is for me to maintain compassion. I'm being really, really honest with you here. I used to be an incredibly uncompassionate person, raised by a person who was incredibly uncompassionate. And I learned, unfortunately, from him how not to be compassionate. So I had to really learn how to be compassionate. So it's in that way for sure. But it also has helped me in looking at people and seeing how everyone is suffering and reminding myself that no matter how tough I think Pat and I have some situation or whatever, that other people have it worse or equally as bad. I'd like to have a little more conversation about this, but before I do, I want to read one more poem, okay? See, I almost lost these pages out there. That's why Pat's laughing. The whole thing here. You know, so I talked about how this is mind training as well. It's mind training because we have to follow these vows. And we have to remind ourselves that it's us who is doing the controlling of the thinking. Even in Tonglen. Okay? So Gerard Manley Hopkins wrote these lines as part of a poem which was about grief, but these are lines not particularly about grief. Oh, the mind! Mind has mountains, Cliffs of fall, frightful, sheer, no man fathomed. Hold them cheap, may ne'er who hung there, nor does long our small durance deal with that steep or deep.
Can you read it once more?
Sure. Oh, the mind has mountains, cliffs of fall, frightful, sheer, no man fathomed. Hold them cheap, may who ne'er dare hung, hold them cheap, may who ne'er hung there, nor does long our small durance deal with that steep or deep. So at the very end, I'd like to do the Bodhisattva vows, but maybe we have some time. I know we have time for discussion. Time is here. Or not.
It's about 15 minutes.
Quarter till, good. Was that too heavy? Yes, Bob.
It reminds me of, this is a more formal, a better approach than what I've been doing. When I get upset with what's going on politically, I remind myself that the current president has suffering himself. I don't think he was raised in a very healthy way. I think there was a lot of emotional abuse, if not more than that. And so I remind myself that this is his suffering that we are also experiencing, and getting some idea of what it must have been like, what it must be like to have someone like this as a father. So, so that's what I experienced. That's what came to me doing this exercise. So thank you.
And also, you talked about bodhicitta, and I like to think of bodhicitta as softening the heart, and I think Pema talks about that, finding the soft spot, softening the heart, and I think these practices help with that. Metta does when we practice loving kindness. Tonglen does as we breathe in these things. And I was also remembering there's another practice, compassion meditation. It's, so if we're thinking about that guy, number 45, who might be upsetting me, and I want to remember that he too is suffering, what is helpful for me is just like me. He wants to do well. Just like me, he's afraid sometimes. Just like me, he's insecure lots of times. So when we practice these things and really feel that phrase of just like me, he knows he doesn't want to be alone, or what it might be, and then my heart softens.
Thank you both. Yeah. First to Bob. When I started this, 45 wasn't president, and there were lots of other issues that I had. People that I knew that were suffering. But when 45 became president, and I began listening to him and seeing him, I began to include him, not all the time, but often. And as far as the compassion practice, yes, I wish I had thought of that to talk about this morning. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, thank you. Just like me. Mm-hmm. And it's true that that's why the other point about metta practice is why I mentioned it here this morning. I use it. I do metta practice anytime I'm doing an active Tonglen practice. I begin it with a metta practice, and I do Tonglen, I think almost every day that I meditate, and I mean almost every time that I meditate, and I meditate every day. I sit zazen, Pat and I actually. Some other comments or questions? I hope there are other people who are touched by this. Yes, Patrick.
It's a practice I do all the time, and it's just a beautiful practice. It just makes me feel good, to be giving, and it gets me out of my head, thinking about other people's suffering as opposed to my own suffering. It's just I just love it. I just love the practice. One more thing.
Oh, yeah.
And you can personalize it, like you said. You can make it about somebody personally. Ideally, that's where I would start, and then I would expand to.
I think, too, just listening to everybody's experience this morning, and what you talked about when you said to think of a friend. And it made me think about this idea of stranger, enemy, friend, and how those relationships change. And when I was thinking of the friend, it made me realize that there were other parts of that person. So in the comments, too, if I have a difficult time sending compassion to a certain part of a person or a certain role of a person or a certain situation a person is in, I will try to find another role, get off that label, because perhaps that person is also a son or a mother or a father or a neighbor or a cook or a knitter in the times that I don't experience that person. And if I just keep a person in the container of the label I've made, then I cheat myself. So that's what I thought of as I was thinking of your direction there.
Lovely, Jackie. Lovely. Thank you. I want to make a comment about Patrick's comment about getting out of yourself. Yeah, I think so much of the suffering of the world is because we are so focused on ourselves, we miss the world around us, the universe. And it's one of the things I just absolutely love about Buddhism, why I'm a Buddhist. Because the Buddha saw this. The Buddha recognized how important it was to notice everything. And, the wonderful story of Mahakapsya holding up the flower. It's just everything, everything. Dogen says, flowers, grasses, tiles, and walls, or something like that. Everything. Everything. Not just us. Everything. And then, Jackie, I think your point about identifying. Yeah. But that's what I heard you really saying. Anybody else? We need a good chanter here to start this off. Not in my voice. Yes. Yes, I'm looking at you, Sensei. Should we start with do we need to have the bell to start it? No, okay. Creations are numberless, I vow to free them. Illusions are inexhaustible, I vow to transform them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to open them. The awakened way is unsurpassable, I vow
transform them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to open them. The awakened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Creations are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to transform them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to open them. The awakened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it.
Thank you all.
Thank you.